Dr. Sarah Chen had delivered thousands of puppies in her 15 years as a veterinarian, but nothing had prepared her for what emerged from Bella, the French bulldog lying on her examination table. The first signs that something was wrong came when Bella's labor stretched far beyond normal limits. What should have taken a few hours had extended into an entire day, with the small dog showing signs of distress that made Sarah's hands shake as she prepared for an emergency cesarean. Bella belonged to Marcus Rodriguez, a construction worker who lived alone in a small apartment downtown. He had found the dog wandering the streets 3 months ago, already pregnant, and taken her in without question. Marcus sat in the waiting room, his calloused hands gripping a styrofoam cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. He jumped every time Sarah's assistant Jenny emerged from the surgical suite with updates. The surgery itself started normally. Sarah made the careful incision, her experienced hands working with practiced precision, but as she reached inside to deliver the first puppy, her fingers encountered something that made her freeze. The texture was wrong. The size was wrong. Everything about what she felt defied every law of biology she knew. When she lifted the first newborn into the light, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The creature was roughly the size of a puppy, but its skin was a translucent blue-gray that seemed to shift and shimmer under the surgical lights. Instead of fur, it had what appeared to be microscopic scales that caught the light like tiny mirrors. Most disturbing of all were its eyes, which opened immediately upon birth, revealing irises that swirled with colors that had no names in human language. Jenny, who was assisting with the surgery, dropped her surgical instrument with a clatter that echoed through the sterile room. "Dr. Chen," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the medical equipment. "What is that thing?" Sarah couldn't answer because she was already reaching for the second newborn. This one was slightly larger, with the same otherworldly characteristics but bearing additional features that made her question her sanity. Small bud-like protrusions emerged from its shoulder blades, and when it opened its mouth to breathe, she glimpsed what looked like rows of crystalline structures instead of teeth. The third and final newborn was the most unsettling of all. As Sarah lifted it from Bella's womb, the creature's skin began to emit a soft pulsing light from within, as if powered by some internal energy source. When she placed it on the warming blanket next to its siblings, all three began to make sounds that were definitely not the mewling cries of puppies. Instead, they produced harmonious tones that seemed to resonate in frequencies that made Sarah's bones vibrate. Bella, despite having given birth to these impossible creatures, showed all the normal maternal instincts of any dog. She immediately began cleaning her offspring with her tongue, seemingly unbothered by their alien appearance. Her tail wagged weakly as she nuzzled each one, and when they latched onto her to nurse, she settled into the comfortable position of any nursing mother. Sarah stumbled backward from the surgical table, her mind racing to process what she had witnessed. Her years of veterinary training had taught her about genetic mutations, birth defects, and rare conditions, but nothing in her education had prepared her for this. These creatures were not deformed puppies. They were something else entirely, something that challenged everything she understood about reproduction, biology, and the natural world. Jenny had backed against the wall, her face pale beneath her surgical mask. "Should I call someone?" she asked, though neither of them knew who someone might be in a situation like this. Before Sarah could respond, the three newborns did something that made both women freeze in terror and amazement. Moving with coordination that was impossible for creatures only minutes old, they arranged themselves in a perfect triangle around their mother. Then simultaneously they began to emit that harmonic sound again. But this time the frequency was different, more complex, almost like a song. The sound filled the surgical suite, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Sarah felt it in her chest, in her bones, in the deepest parts of her brain. It was beautiful and terrifying, alien and somehow familiar. As the strange melody continued, the air around the newborns began to shimmer, distorting like heat waves rising from summer pavement. Marcus, waiting in the lobby, heard something too. It wasn't the crying of puppies he had expected, but something that made his spine tingle and his heart race. He stood up from his chair, every instinct telling him that something monumental was happening in that surgical suite, something that would change everything he thought he knew about the world. Sarah forced herself to move forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. As she approached the surgical table, the harmonic sound stopped abruptly. and all three creatures turned their swirling, impossible eyes toward her. In that moment, Sarah had the unmistakable feeling that they were studying her just as intently as she was studying them. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Sarah looked down at Bella, who continued to nuzzle her offspring with the pure love of a mother, completely accepting of whatever they were. The dog's simple acceptance stood in stark contrast to the chaos of questions and fears racing through Sarah's mind. Jenny finally broke the silence with a whispered question that would haunt Sarah for days to come. "Dr. Chen, what are we going to tell Mr. Rodriguez? What are we going to tell anyone?" As if summoned by her words, a soft knock came at the surgical suite door. Marcus's voice called through, filled with the anxious hope of any new grandfather. "Doc, is everything okay in there? Can I see them?" Sarah looked at the three impossible creatures nursing peacefully at their mother's side, then at Jenny's terrified face, then at the door where Marcus waited for news that would shatter his understanding of reality. In that moment, she realized that what had just happened in her small veterinary clinic was only the beginning of something much larger, something that would soon extend far beyond the walls of her practice and into a world that wasn't ready for the truth. Sarah's hands trembled as she faced the impossible decision of how to explain the unexplainable. She could hear Marcus pacing outside the surgical suite, his work boots creating a rhythmic pattern on the linoleum floor that matched her racing heartbeat. The three creatures continued to nurse peacefully, their translucent skin pulsing with that inner light that defied every law of physics she knew. "Give me 5 minutes," Sarah called through the door, her voice steadier than she felt. "I need to make sure everything is stable." She quickly cleaned and weighed each creature, documenting their vital signs with the same professional thoroughness she would apply to any newborn, even though nothing about them was normal. Each one measured approximately 6 inches in length and weighed just under a pound. Their body temperature registered as several degrees cooler than any mammal should survive. Yet they appeared perfectly healthy and alert. Jenny helped her transfer Bella and her offspring to a larger, more comfortable recovery kennel. As they worked, the creature's eyes tracked their movements with an intelligence that made Sarah's skin crawl. When she accidentally brushed against one while adjusting the heating pad, it didn't react with the startled reflexes of a newborn. Instead, it seemed to study the contact point where her finger had touched its scaled skin. "We have to let him in," Jenny whispered, glancing toward the door. "He's been waiting for hours." Sarah nodded, knowing that hiding the truth was impossible. She opened the door to find Marcus standing there with flowers and a camera, his face bright with anticipation. "Doc, I brought these for you and Jenny, and I thought I'd take some pictures of the little ones for my sister. She's been so excited about the puppies." The enthusiasm in his voice made Sarah's heart ache. She guided him to the kennel, positioning herself between Marcus and the most obvious view of the creatures. "Marcus, I need you to prepare yourself. The birth was unusual." Marcus's smile faded as he registered the tension in the room. "Are they okay? Is Bella okay?" "Bella is fine," Sarah assured him quickly. "But the puppies, Marcus, they're not exactly what we expected." She stepped aside, revealing the kennel's contents. Marcus's eyes widened as he took in the sight of Bella contentedly nursing 3 creatures that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie rather than a veterinary clinic. The flowers dropped from his hands, scattering yellow petals across the floor. "What the hell?" Marcus breathed, moving closer to the kennel. To Sarah's surprise, he didn't back away in fear. Instead, his expression shifted to one of protective concern. "Are they hurt? Are they sick?" "They appear to be healthy," Sarah said carefully. "But Marcus, these aren't dogs. I don't know what they are." Marcus knelt beside the kennel, his weathered face inches from the wire mesh. One of the creatures turned its swirling eyes toward him and made a soft musical sound that was almost like purring, but far more complex. "Bella loves them," Marcus observed, his voice filled with wonder rather than fear. "Look at how gentle she is with them." As if responding to their conversation, Bella lifted her head and wagged her tail at Marcus, her brown eyes bright with the satisfaction of any new mother showing off her babies. The normalcy of her behavior stood in stark contrast to the impossibility of what she had given birth to. "We need to call someone," Jenny said, her voice tight with anxiety. "The health department, maybe? Or animal control?" "No," Marcus said firmly, surprising both women with the intensity in his voice. "Nobody's taking them away from Bella. Look at her. She's happy." Sarah understood his protective instincts, but the implications of what they were dealing with extended far beyond a simple veterinary case. Marcus, we're in completely uncharted territory here. These creatures might be dangerous. They might be carrying diseases we don't understand. They might be. Her words were interrupted by the arrival of two black SUVs in the clinic's parking lot. Through the window, Sarah watched as several people in dark suits emerged from the vehicles, their movements coordinated and purposeful. Her blood ran cold as she realized that somehow, someone already knew what had happened in her clinic, Dr. Chen. A woman's voice called from the front of the clinic. This is Agent Lisa Park, with the Department of Extraordinary Phenomena. We need to speak with you immediately. Jenny's face went white. How do they already know? Marcus stood protectively in front of the kennel, his body language shifting into something defensive and determined. Whatever you told them, Doc, I'm not letting anybody hurt Bella or her babies. I didn't tell anyone anything, Sarah protested, but even as she spoke, she remembered the emergency frequencies built into all modern medical equipment. If the creature's harmonic sounds had been broadcast on any monitored wavelength, it would explain how the government had been alerted so quickly. Agent Park appeared in the doorway of the surgical suite, flanked by two men who looked like they spent their days lifting weights and their nights reading classified documents. She was younger than Sarah had expected, perhaps in her early 30s, with sharp eyes that immediately cataloged every detail of the room. Dr. Chen, I'm going to need you to step away from the animals, Agent Park said, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. They're not animals, Marcus said, surprising everyone, including himself. I mean, they're not just animals. Look at their eyes. They're thinking. They're aware. Agent Park's attention shifted to Marcus, and Sarah saw something flicker across the agent's face. Recognition, or perhaps respect. You're Marcus Rodriguez, the man who found the mother dog? Her name is Bella, Marcus corrected, his chin lifting with stubborn pride. And yes, I found her. She was hungry and scared, and I took her in. Now, whatever these little ones are, they're mine too. Mr. Rodriguez, what you've witnessed here today is a matter of national security, Agent Park explained, pulling out a tablet and beginning to type. These creatures represent a potential first contact scenario with non-terrestrial intelligence. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. First contact, non-terrestrial intelligence, aliens. Sarah's scientific mind immediately began racing through the implications. You mean they're? She couldn't finish the sentence. We believe so, Agent Park confirmed. Our satellites detected unusual energy signatures from this location approximately 6 hours ago, coinciding with the birth timeline you've provided. We also intercepted harmonic transmissions that match no known earthly frequency. Marcus stepped closer to the kennel, his protective instincts flaring. I don't care if they're from Mars. They're babies and they need their mother. Agent Park's expression softened slightly and she nodded to one of her colleagues. Mr. Rodriguez, your concern for these beings is noted and appreciated. However, you must understand that this situation has implications far beyond this clinic. As if responding to the tension in the room, the three creatures began their harmonic song again. This time the sound was different, more urgent, almost pleading. Bella immediately became agitated, whining and pacing within the confines of the kennel. They're scared, Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. The babies are scared and it's upsetting Bella. Agent Park looked at her tablet as new data streamed across the screen. The harmonic pattern has changed, she reported to her colleagues. It's more complex now, almost like language, Sarah finished, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. They're trying to communicate. The agent's eyes met Sarah's, and in that moment both women understood that they were standing at the threshold of something that would change humanity forever. Agent Park's tablet erupted with activity as streams of data flowed across its screen. The harmonic sounds from the three creatures had triggered analysis systems around the globe, and the results were staggering. Dr. Chen, Mr. Rodriguez, what you're hearing is the most sophisticated communication we've ever encountered from a non-human intelligence. Marcus refused to move away from the kennel, his weathered hands gripping the wire mesh. I don't care what your computers say. These are babies and they're trying to tell us something important. You're more right than you know, Agent Park replied, her voice tinged with amazement. The pattern analysis suggests they're transmitting coordinates. Sarah moved closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Coordinates to what? Before Agent Park could respond, the air in the surgical suite began to shimmer again, more intensely than before. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the fluorescent lights flickered as if struggling against some invisible interference. The three creatures' harmonic song grew louder, more urgent, and their inner light pulsed in perfect synchronization. "Everyone step back," Agent Park ordered, but Marcus held his ground. "I'm not leaving them," he said firmly. "Whatever's happening, they're scared." As if responding to his declaration, the shimmering air suddenly coalesced into something solid. A sphere of what looked like liquid mercury materialized above the kennel, hovering silently as its surface rippled with patterns that seemed to convey meaning. From within the sphere came a voice, speaking in perfectly clear English despite having no visible source. "We greet you, protectors of our young." The words sent chills through everyone in the room. Agent Park immediately activated her communication device, summoning additional support while Jenny pressed herself against the far wall, her eyes wide with terror and wonder. "You're young?" Sarah asked, her voice barely steady. "These creatures are yours?" "They are our children given to this world in desperation," the voice replied, and there was something unmistakably sorrowful in its tone. "We did not intend for the transfer to occur through your companion animal, but our species was dying and we had no choice." Marcus's protective instincts flared. "You used Bella? You made her carry your babies without asking?" "We sought a willing vessel," the voice explained. "Your companion animal approached our damaged vessel 3 cycles ago, drawn by distress calls we were broadcasting. She offered comfort to our dying breeder, and in that moment of connection, the embryonic transfer occurred naturally." The explanation hit Sarah like a revelation. 3 months ago, Marcus had found Bella already pregnant, wandering the streets. But what if she hadn't been wandering? What if she had been seeking something? "She went to help you," Marcus said, his voice filled with understanding and pride. "That's just like Bella. She's always been drawn to anything that needs help." The sphere pulsed brighter. "Your companion animal's compassion saved our species, but we did not anticipate the unique nature of human maternal instinct. She has cared for our young as if they were her own biological offspring." Agent Park stepped forward, her tablet recording every word. "Why Earth? Why did you come here?" "We have been monitoring your species for many of your generations," the voice replied. "Humans possess a quality that is rare in the galaxy, a capacity for instant emotional bonding across species barriers. Most sentient races care only for their own kind, but humans regularly adopt and nurture creatures completely unlike themselves." Sarah thought of all the veterinary cases she had seen over the years, humans who treated their pets like family members, who spent fortunes on medical care for animals, who grieved for their companion animals as deeply as they would for relatives. "You're talking about our relationship with animals." "More than that," the sphere continued. "You are the only known species that regularly risks your own lives to save creatures that offer you no biological or strategic advantage. Your companion animal, Bella, demonstrated this when she approached our distress signal. She had no reason to help us, yet she came without hesitation." Marcus's eyes filled with tears as he looked down at Bella, who was contentedly nursing the 3 alien babies. "She's always been special. Even when she was a stray, she would try to comfort other animals in distress." "The universe is vast and often cruel," the voice said, and the sphere's surface showed swirling patterns that seemed to convey images of distant stars and dying worlds. "Most species we have encountered view other life forms as resources to be exploited or threats to be eliminated. Only humans regularly demonstrate what you call compassion for beings unlike themselves." Agent Park's communication device buzzed with incoming messages. "My superiors want to know if you represent a threat to Earth." The sphere dimmed slightly, and when the voice spoke again, it carried a weight of ancient sadness. "We are 47 individuals remaining from a civilization that once numbered in the billions. Our homeworld was consumed by a cosmic event that your scientists would call a gamma-ray burst. We have spent generations searching for a species capable of raising our young, and every attempt has failed until now." "What happened to the other attempts?" Sarah asked, though she feared the answer. "Other species either rejected our young immediately or attempted to study them as specimens. Some tried to weaponize their abilities. None showed the instinctive protective response we have witnessed here." Marcus looked around the room, his gaze taking in Agent Park's armed escorts, the government surveillance equipment and the clinical setting. "And what makes you think humans will be different?" The sphere pulsed and the voice took on a tone of profound respect. "Because when our young were born appearing unlike anything you had ever seen, Your first instinct was to ensure their health and safety. Because you have remained here protecting them, despite your fear and confusion, because your companion animal accepted them without question, and you accepted her judgment. Agent Park received another message on her device, this one causing her expression to shift from wariness to something approaching awe. Dr. Chen, I'm getting reports from around the globe. Similar births have occurred in 17 other locations, all involving companion animals that disappeared for a few days approximately 3 months ago and returned pregnant. 17 other families like ours? Marcus asked, his voice filled with wonder. Each birth was attended by humans who immediately provided medical care and protection, the voice confirmed. Each set of adoptive parents has refused to surrender the young, despite their obvious non-terrestrial nature. This response is unprecedented in our experience. Sarah felt a chill of realization. You're conducting an experiment. You're testing us. We are entrusting you with our future, the voice corrected gently. Our young will grow and learn from their human families. If they thrive, if they are loved and protected, then perhaps there is hope for cooperation between our species. The 3 creatures in the kennel had stopped their harmonic singing and seemed to be listening to the conversation with rapt attention. Their swirling eyes moved between the humans and the sphere, and Sarah had the distinct impression they were learning from every word spoken. What happens if they don't thrive? Agent Park asked, her hand moving unconsciously toward her weapon. The sphere's surface stilled, becoming perfectly reflective. Then we will know that even the most compassionate species in the galaxy cannot overcome the barriers between worlds, and we will seek our extinction with dignity. Marcus's voice cut through the heavy silence that followed. They'll thrive. I don't know much about aliens or cosmic events or any of that stuff, but I know about taking care of things that need help, and these little ones, they're going to be loved. The sphere began to fade, its surface becoming translucent. The choice now belongs to your species and your governments. We will monitor from a distance and return when our young reach maturity. What you do with this knowledge will determine the future of both our peoples. As the sphere vanished completely, leaving only the ordinary sounds of the veterinary clinic, everyone stood in stunned silence. The 3 alien babies resumed nursing peacefully, while Bella watched their human protectors with patient, knowing eyes that seemed to say she had faith in their decision. Within hours of the alien contact, Sarah's small veterinary clinic had become the epicenter of a global phenomenon. News crews gathered outside while government officials cordoned off the building, but inside, life continued with surprising normalcy. Bella had been moved to a larger, more comfortable space where she could care for her unusual offspring, and Marcus had refused all attempts to separate him from his adopted family. Agent Park had established a command center in the clinic's break room, coordinating with teams around the world who were dealing with similar situations. The reports coming in painted a remarkable picture of human nature under extraordinary circumstances. In Mumbai, a street vendor had spent his life savings on medical care for 3 alien babies born to his rescued cat. In Stockholm, an elderly woman was teaching the creatures Swedish lullabies. In São Paulo, a family was already baby-proofing their home for visitors that defied every biological norm. Every single case is the same, Agent Park reported during a video conference with her superiors. The humans involved have immediately accepted parental responsibility for the alien young, despite obvious risks and unknowns. Sarah watched through the break room window as Marcus sat beside Bella's enclosure, reading aloud from a children's book about friendship. The 3 alien babies had arranged themselves in their characteristic triangle formation, their swirling eyes focused intently on Marcus's face as if absorbing every word. Their harmonic sounds had evolved throughout the day, becoming more complex and varied, almost as if they were beginning to mimic human speech patterns. The learning rate is extraordinary, Sarah commented, drawing Agent Park's attention to the scene. In less than 24 hours, they've begun responding to their names. Marcus had named them Hope, Faith, and Joy, claiming that any beings who had traveled across the galaxy deserved names that reflected the best of humanity. The names seemed to resonate with the creatures, who would turn their attention toward whoever spoke their name, their inner light pulsing brighter in apparent recognition. Dr. Elizabeth Martinez, a xenobiologist who had been flown in from the CDC, emerged from her examination of the creatures with the expression of stunned amazement. Their neural development is unlike anything we've ever documented. They're processing language, emotional cues, and social dynamics at a rate that suggests accelerated learning capability. They're smart, Marcus said simply, not looking up from his book. Real smart. Hope figured out how to open the kennel latch this morning, but she didn't try to escape. She just wanted to show me she could do it. Agent Park reviewed the psychological profiles that had been compiled on all 18 families worldwide who had been chosen as surrogate parents for the alien young. The results revealed a pattern that was both humbling and inspiring. Every single family had a history of rescuing animals, volunteering at shelters, or demonstrating exceptional compassion toward creatures in need. The selection process wasn't random, Agent Park realized aloud. The aliens specifically chose the most nurturing humans they could find. Sarah nodded, remembering the voice's explanation about monitoring humanity for generations. They've been studying us, learning what makes us different from other species they've encountered. The implications were staggering. Humanity was being evaluated not for their technological advancement or military might, but for their capacity for interspecies empathy. It was a test that many civilizations might fail, but humans seemed to be passing with remarkable consistency. Jenny, who had remained at the clinic despite the chaos, brought sandwiches to everyone who was working. As she distributed the simple meal, she paused to watch the alien babies. They're getting bigger, she observed. Noticeably bigger than this morning. Dr. Martinez confirmed the observation with precise measurements. They've grown approximately 15% in size over the past 12 hours. Their metabolic rate suggests they'll reach juvenile proportions within weeks rather than months. Bella's keeping up with their needs, Marcus said with pride, scratching behind the dog's ears. She's producing more milk than should be physically possible, but she doesn't seem stressed by it. If anything, she seems more content than I've ever seen her. The afternoon brought a development that would reshape everyone's understanding of the situation. The 3 babies began producing new harmonic patterns, but this time they were clearly attempting to replicate human speech. Hope managed to approximate the sound. Marcus, while Faith seemed to be working on Bella, and Joy was experimenting with musical tones that sounded remarkably like laughter. They're not just learning language, Dr. Martinez reported excitedly. They're developing distinct personalities based on their interactions with their human family. Marcus beamed with paternal pride. Hope's the adventurous one, always trying to explore beyond the enclosure. Faith is gentler, loves being petted. And Joy, well, she's the comedian. Watch this. He made a funny face at the smallest of the 3 creatures, who immediately mimicked his expression while producing a sound that was unmistakably giggling. Agent Park received an urgent communication from her headquarters. Dr. Chen, we're getting pressure from multiple government agencies to transfer the creatures to secure research facilities. They want to study their technology, their physiology, their potential applications. No, Marcus said firmly, standing up from his chair with a determination that surprised everyone. They're not going anywhere. These are children, not specimens. Mr. Rodriguez, you have to understand the scientific importance, Dr. Martinez began. I understand plenty, Marcus interrupted. I understand that these babies trust us. I understand that Bella chose to protect them, and they chose to be born here. I understand that if we break that trust, we'll prove everything the aliens suspected about other species. Sarah found herself standing beside Marcus, her own protective instincts awakening. He's right. The aliens said other species tried to weaponize their young or treat them as specimens. If we do the same thing, we'll be proving that humans are no different from any other species they've encountered. Agent Park looked torn between her orders and her growing understanding of the situation's true significance. The president wants a briefing. Congress is demanding answers. The scientific community is going crazy. Then tell them the truth, Marcus said simply. Tell them that we're being tested and right now we're passing. Tell them that these babies are learning to be human. And maybe we're learning to be something better than human. As if responding to his words, the 3 alien babies began their harmonic singing again. But this time the melody was familiar. They were singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the children's song Marcus had been reading to them earlier. Their voices were ethereal and beautiful, but the tune was unmistakably human. Dr. Martinez wiped tears from her eyes as she recorded the moment. They're becoming a bridge, she whispered. Part alien, part human, something entirely new. Jenny sat down beside the enclosure, humming along with the baby's song. What happens when they grow up? What happens when they're not babies anymore? Agent Park's tablet chimed with another message, this one marked with the highest security clearance. As she read it, her expression shifted from concern to something approaching fear. Dr. Chen, I need to speak with you privately. They stepped into the adjacent examination room, leaving Marcus to continue his impromptu singing lesson with the babies. Agent Park's voice was low and urgent when she spoke. We've detected movement in deep space, multiple objects, clearly artificial, approaching our solar system. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The aliens are coming back? It appears so, and based on their trajectory and speed, they'll be here in approximately 72 hours. The weight of responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders like a physical burden. In 3 days, the alien parents would return to evaluate humanity's performance as surrogate caretakers. The fate of both species would depend on what they found when they arrived. Through the wall, they could hear Marcus's voice joined by the harmonic tones of 3 rapidly growing alien babies, all singing together in perfect harmony. It was the sound of 2 worlds learning to become one, and Sarah prayed it would be enough. The news of the approaching alien fleet sent shockwaves through world governments, but the response wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of military mobilization or panic, something unprecedented happened. The 18 families caring for alien babies became the most protected and supported people on Earth. President Harrison addressed the nation from the Oval Office, her words carrying the weight of history. My fellow Americans and citizens of the world, we stand at a crossroads that will define our species for generations to come. We are not being invaded, we are being evaluated, and our response will determine whether humanity takes its place among the stars or remains forever isolated. In Sarah's clinic, which had been transformed into a combination nursery, research facility, and diplomatic center, the changes were remarkable. Hope, faith, and joy had tripled in size over the past 48 hours, now resembling toddlers more than infants. Their communication skills had advanced beyond simple words to complex sentences, and their personalities had become increasingly distinct and recognizably human-influenced. Marcus, why do you sing to Bella? Hope asked, her voice carrying musical tones that made ordinary words sound like poetry. She had become fascinated with human expressions of affection, constantly asking about the small gestures of love she observed. Marcus smiled as he petted Bella, who had grown remarkably relaxed despite her unusual situation, because songs make her happy, and when someone you love is happy, it makes you happy too. Faith, the gentlest of the 3, approached Dr. Martinez with careful steps. Dr. Martinez, will you teach me about healing? I want to help others like you help us. Dr. Martinez knelt down to Faith's level, marveling at the creature's rapid development. Of course, sweetheart. Would you like to start by learning how to check Bella's heartbeat? Meanwhile, Joy had discovered humor and was delighting in making everyone laugh with her impressions of human facial expressions. She had mastered the art of the exaggerated wink, the thoughtful frown, and what Marcus called her mischief grin. Agent Park coordinated with similar scenes around the globe through secure video links. In Tokyo, alien babies were learning origami from their human family. In London, they were being taught football by enthusiastic siblings who had instantly accepted their new family members. In Cairo, they were learning to help their adoptive grandmother with her daily prayers, showing deep respect for human spiritual practices. The psychological development is beyond our models, Dr. Martinez reported during a global scientific briefing. They're not just learning human behaviors, they're developing human emotional responses. They show empathy, curiosity, humor, and most remarkably, love for their human families. But not everyone was pleased with humanity's nurturing response. A group of military officials had arrived at the clinic, led by General Morrison, who viewed the situation through a distinctly different lens. Dr. Chen, General Morrison said, his voice carrying military authority. These creatures are potential weapons, intelligence assets, or technological goldmines. Keeping them in civilian hands is a strategic error. Marcus stepped protectively in front of the enclosure where his 3 charges were playing with wooden blocks. They're not weapons. They're children who happen to be from another planet. They're alien technology wrapped in an appealing biological package, the general countered. Their rapid growth rate, their learning capabilities, their harmonic communication system, all of these could provide humanity with unprecedented advantages. Hope looked up from her blocks, her swirling eyes focusing on the general with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Why do you speak of us as things instead of who we are? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Faith and Joy moved to flank their sister, their formation instinctive but clearly protective. Despite being only days old, they had already learned to recognize threat in human body language and tone. They're sentient beings, Sarah interjected, stepping between the general and the children. They have thoughts, feelings, and rights. If we treat them as objects to be exploited, we'll prove that the aliens were wrong about humanity. Agent Park received a priority message on her tablet. General, I'm getting reports from the other 17 sites. Every attempt to separate the alien young from their human families has resulted in the same response, both from the humans and the aliens. The humans refuse to give them up, and the aliens become distressed when separated from their adoptive families. Stockholm reported that when government officials tried to take the alien babies for evaluation, the entire family barricaded themselves in their home, another aide reported. The local police refused to force entry because the babies were crying. Dr. Martinez looked up from her observations. The bonding process appears to be biochemical as well as emotional. Both species are releasing hormones associated with parent-child attachment. Separation at this point could be traumatic for everyone involved. Marcus watched his 3 charges with growing protectiveness. They trust us. Look at them. Really look at them. Hope comes to me when she's scared. Faith asked Jenny to sing lullabies. Joy tries to comfort Bella when she thinks the dog is sad. These aren't alien invaders. They're kids who need families. General Morrison's expression remained skeptical. And when their parents return? When the alien fleet arrives in 12 hours? What makes you think they'll see you as anything more than temporary caretakers? Because, Faith said softly, having apparently been listening to the entire conversation, we will tell them about love. The simple statement silenced the room. Faith moved closer to Marcus, wrapping her small arms around his leg in a gesture of pure affection. Marcus teaches us that family is not about being the same species. Family is about choosing to care for each other. Joy nodded enthusiastically, and Jenny shows us that healing means making hurt things better, even when they're different from you. Hope, the most precocious of the 3, stood up on a chair to address General Morrison directly. Our birth parents gave us to humans because they saw something special in your species. If you try to make us into weapons, we will not let you. We choose to be human children, not alien tools. The resolve in her young voice was unmistakable, and even General Morrison seemed taken aback by the maturity of her declaration. Agent Park's tablet chimed with another update. The fleet has entered the outer solar system. First contact protocols are being activated worldwide. All 18 families have been designated as official ambassadors for humanity. Ambassadors? Marcus asked, looking slightly overwhelmed. You and the other families are the only humans who have successfully bonded with their species, Agent Park explained. When they arrive, you'll be speaking for all of humanity. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. What if we say the wrong thing? What if we fail their test? Then we fail it as humans, Marcus said simply. We fail at being the kind of humans who take in strays, who sing lullabies to scared babies, who risk everything to protect those who need protection. Dr. Martinez received an urgent communication from her team monitoring space. The alien fleet is broadcasting. Same harmonic patterns we've been recording from the babies. As if responding to this news, Hope, Faith, and Joy suddenly became very still, their eyes turning upward as if they could see through the clinic's ceiling to the stars beyond. Then together they began to sing, their voices joining in a complex harmony that seemed to carry messages across the vast distances of space. They're talking to their parents, Jenny whispered in amazement. The harmonic song continued for several minutes before the 3 babies turned back to their human family with expressions of joy and excitement. They're coming home, Hope announced happily, and we get to show them our new family. Outside, the first alien ships began to appear as bright points of light in the evening sky, visible even through the city's ambient lighting. Humanity held its breath, waiting to see if their capacity for love would be enough to bridge the gap between worlds. The alien fleet descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their ships glowing with the same inner light that pulsed within Hope, Faith, and Joy. Rather than landing at military installations or government facilities, Each ship positioned itself directly above one of the 18 families caring for alien young. Sarah watched through the clinic's skylight as a vessel the size of a city bus hovered silently overhead, its surface rippling with patterns that seemed almost alive. "They're here," Marcus whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He held Bella in his arms while hope, faith, and joy pressed against the window, their harmonic singing now so complex it seemed to contain entire conversations. Agent Park coordinated with teams worldwide, each reporting similar phenomena. All 18 ships are in position. No hostile actions detected. They appear to be waiting for something. "They're waiting for permission," Hope said, turning from the window with an expression of profound understanding. "In their culture, you always ask before entering someone's home." Dr. Martinez looked up from her instruments, which were recording energy readings unlike anything previously documented. "The ships are generating localized gravitational fields, but they're perfectly stable. No danger to the surrounding area." General Morrison, who had remained at the clinic despite his earlier objections, spoke into his communicator. "All units maintain defensive positions but do not take aggressive action. I repeat, do not engage unless directly threatened." Faith tugged on Sarah's coat, her young face serious with responsibility. "Dr. Sarah, may we invite our birth parents inside? They have traveled very far to see us." Sarah looked around at the faces of everyone who had become her extended family over the past few days. Marcus nodded encouragingly while Jenny smiled despite her nervousness. Even Agent Park gave a slight nod of approval. "Yes," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the room. "Please invite them in." The three babies joined hands and began singing in unison, their voices creating harmonies that seemed to resonate through the building itself. Within moments, the same Mercury-like sphere from their first contact began materializing in the center of the room. But this time it was accompanied by two additional spheres, each pulsing with its own distinct energy signature. "Greetings, guardians of our children," the familiar voice spoke from the original sphere. "We are the collective parental unit for these young ones. We have come to evaluate their development and your species' suitability as permanent caregivers." Marcus stepped forward, still holding Bella, his weathered face showing no fear. "Before you evaluate anything, you should know that these kids have become our family. Whatever you decide about our species, they're staying with us." A new voice emerged from the second sphere, deeper and carrying tones of ancient wisdom. "Your attachment to our offspring is noted. Hanukkah and unexpected. Previous species viewed them as obligations, to be discharged once our evaluation was complete. That's because previous species didn't understand what family means." Joy interjected, moving to stand beside Marcus. "Human families don't get rid of children just because they're different." The third sphere, which had remained silent, suddenly brightened. The young one speaks with authority beyond her age. "Show us what you have learned, small ones." Hope, faith, and joy exchanged glances before beginning what could only be described as a presentation. Hope spoke first, her voice clear and confident. "We have learned that humans measure success not by power or intelligence, but by kindness and protection of those who cannot protect themselves." Faith continued the narrative. "They sing to comfort fear. They sacrifice resources to heal the injured. And they mourn for creatures that are not even their own species." Joy concluded with a demonstration, walking over to Bella and gently checking the dog's ears the way Dr. Martinez had taught her. "They teach healing not as conquest over weakness, but as service to life itself." The three spheres pulsed in what seemed like communication with each other before the original voice spoke again. "In 47 attempts across 17 different species, we have never observed such integration between our young and their temporary guardians." Temporary? Marcus's voice carried a warning that surprised everyone, including himself. "There's nothing temporary about this family." Dr. Martinez stepped forward with her tablet full of data. "If I may, your children are not just healthy and well-developed. They're extraordinarily happy. Their brain chemistry shows elevated levels of every hormone associated with contentment, security, and love." Agent Park activated her communication device. "I'm receiving similar reports from all 18 sites. The alien young are demonstrating unprecedented emotional development, and every human family is refusing to consider separation." The second sphere's voice carried what could only be described as amazement. "You would keep our children permanently? Raise them as your own despite their obvious differences?" "Differences?" Jenny laughed, approaching Faith to tie a small ribbon in the alien child's hair. Faith helps me organize medical supplies. Hope reads bedtime stories to Bella. Joy makes everyone laugh when they're sad. They're not different in any way that matters. But they will grow to possess abilities your species cannot comprehend, the third sphere warned. They will develop technologies beyond your current understanding. They will remember their true heritage. Good, Marcus said firmly. Maybe they'll use those abilities to make the world better. Maybe they'll develop technologies that help people. And as for their heritage, they can remember wherever they came from while still being proud of where they grew up. Hope moved to the center of the room, her young voice carrying unexpected authority. Birth parents, we choose to remain with our human families. We choose to grow up as Earth children while honoring our star heritage. We choose to become bridges between worlds. Faith and Joy flanked their sister, creating their characteristic triangle formation. We have learned that love multiplies rather than divides, Faith added. We can love both our birth species and our chosen species. And if anyone tries to separate us, Joy said with a mischievous grin that was pure human influence, we will be very, very loud about it. The spheres dimmed and brightened in rapid succession, clearly engaged in intense communication. Finally, the original voice spoke with what sounded like profound relief. For generations, we have searched for a species capable of true adoption across biological boundaries. We have found not just caretakers, but a people who expand the very definition of family. Agent Park received an urgent communication. The other 17 sites are reporting identical responses. The alien children are choosing to stay with their human families, and the parents are accepting this decision. General Morrison, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. What does this mean for Earth? For humanity's future? The second sphere answered with obvious respect. It means that humanity has passed a test that no other species has even attempted. You have proven that intelligence combined with compassion can create bonds stronger than biology itself. Our species will establish a permanent diplomatic presence in your solar system, the third sphere announced. Our children will serve as cultural ambassadors, learning both heritages and teaching both peoples. Marcus looked down at the three alien children who had somehow become his greatest responsibility and his greatest joy. And if other species want to test us the same way, they will find, Hope said with a wisdom beyond her days, that humans don't just pass tests. They create new definitions of what it means to be family. As if to emphasize the point, Bella trotted over to the three alien babies and settled down beside them, her tail wagging as she assumed her protective position. The sight of a Earth dog guarding alien children while their human and alien parents negotiated the future of two worlds perfectly captured everything that made humanity unique. Outside, 17 other ships hovered over 17 other families who were having similar conversations, all reaching the same remarkable conclusion. Love truly was the universal language, and humans were fluent in it. 6 months later, Sarah's veterinary clinic had become something unprecedented in human history. The first interspecies family counseling center. Hope, Faith, and Joy had grown into the equivalent of human 6-year-olds, their abilities developing in ways that amazed both species, while their essential personalities remained beautifully, recognizably influenced by their human upbringing. Marcus had officially adopted all three children through newly created interspecies adoption laws, making him the first human in history to be legally recognized as the father of alien offspring. The adoption ceremony had been attended by representatives from both species and broadcast worldwide as a symbol of humanity's new place in the galactic community. "Dad, watch this," Hope called out, demonstrating her latest ability to manipulate light into complex patterns that could communicate detailed emotional concepts. She had used this skill to help human children with autism express their feelings more clearly, turning her alien heritage into a tool for healing. Faith had discovered that her empathic abilities allowed her to sense physical pain in others, making her an invaluable assistant to Dr. Martinez in diagnosing conditions that might otherwise go undetected. "Mrs. Peterson's arthritis is worse today," she reported as their next patient arrived. "She's trying not to show it because she doesn't want to worry her family." Joy had become the clinic's unofficial therapy coordinator, using her natural humor and her species' harmonic abilities to calm anxious animals and their nervous owners. "Mr. Whiskers isn't really angry," she explained to a concerned cat owner. "He's scared because he remembers the last time he was in a carrier. Would you like me to sing him a calming song?" Bella, now recognized as Earth's first interspecies mother and given the honorary title of Ambassador Dog, had become something of a celebrity herself. She spent her days contentedly supervising her unusual children, while serving as a living example of cross-species parenting. The fact that a simple French bulldog had initiated first contact with an alien civilization had not been lost on humanity's sense of irony. Agent Park, now Director of Interspecies Relations, coordinated with similar families around the globe. The 18 original families had become the foundation of a new diplomatic corps, with their alien children serving as cultural bridges between worlds. The Johannesburg family reports that their children have successfully mediated a water rights dispute using harmonic negotiation techniques, she reported during the morning briefing. The Mumbai family's kids have developed a new form of sustainable energy based on their natural bioelectric abilities. Dr. Martinez had published papers that revolutionized both veterinary medicine and xenobiology, but her greatest achievement was the establishment of protocols for interspecies child development. The alien children are not just adapting to human culture, she explained to a gathering of international scientists. They're creating something entirely new, a hybrid culture that incorporates the best of both species. The broader implications of humanity's success had reverberated throughout the galaxy. The alien collective had shared the story of Earth's unique response with other civilizations, leading to what historians would later call the Great Revelation. Dozens of species that had previously ignored or dismissed humanity suddenly viewed them as potentially valuable allies. We've received 17 requests for cultural exchange programs, Agent Park reported to the United Nations General Assembly. 3 different species want to establish trade relationships, and one ancient civilization that has remained isolated for millennia has requested permission to send observers to study human family dynamics. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. The knowledge that they possessed something rare and valuable in the galaxy, something as simple and fundamental as the ability to love across species boundaries, had unified the planet in ways that decades of diplomacy had failed to achieve. Marcus, now consulting with families around the world who were preparing for similar adoptions, had become an unexpected expert on interspecies parenting. The secret isn't treating them like human children or alien children, he explained during a video conference with prospective parents in Geneva. It's treating them like your children, period. The most important thing we've learned, Sarah added from her position as director of the Global Interspecies Adoption Program, is that parental love truly is universal. These children thrive because they're wanted, protected, and cherished, not because of any special techniques or technologies. Hope had developed the ability to project her thoughts as images, which she used to create art that captured emotions in ways that transcended language barriers. Her gallery exhibitions featured collaborative pieces created with human artists, demonstrating how different forms of intelligence could enhance each other. Faith's empathic abilities had evolved to include emotional healing, making her a sought-after counselor for both humans and the increasing number of alien visitors to Earth. Sadness feels the same in every species, she explained to a delegation of visiting diplomats. So does joy, love, and hope. Joy had become Earth's first interspecies comedian, developing a form of humor that relied on universal experiences like family dynamics, the frustrations of learning new skills, and the awkwardness of growing up different. Her performances were broadcast throughout the galaxy, serving as cultural ambassadors for human humor. The alien collective had established a permanent base on Luna, close enough to monitor their children's development while respecting human sovereignty. Regular family visits had become a source of joy for both species, with alien grandparents delighting in their Earth-raised grandchildren's accomplishments. Your species has given us something we thought we had lost forever, the lead collective representative had told the UN during the first anniversary celebration of First Contact. You have given us a future. Our children will grow up bicultural, bilingual in ways that encompass both heartbeats and harmonics, both logic and love. As Sarah walked through her expanded clinic, watching Marcus help Hope with her homework while Faith assisted with a nervous rescue puppy, and Joy entertained a waiting room full of patients with her latest song, she reflected on how much had changed since that extraordinary night when Bella had given birth to the impossible. Bella herself had become the mother of a new age, her simple act of compassion toward alien distress signals having opened the door between worlds. She spent her golden years surrounded by children who sang her lullabies in frequencies that could heal both bodies and souls. Proof that love truly was the strongest force in the universe. Dr. Chen, Hope called out, looking up from her homework with those swirling, impossible eyes that had first shocked Sarah into a new understanding of what family could mean. Faith and Joy and I have been talking with our birth parents about something important. What's that, sweetheart? There are other species out there who need families, Hope explained with the serious expression she wore when discussing weighty matters. Species whose children need parents who understand that different doesn't mean wrong. Faith nodded enthusiastically. We want to help Earth become a place where any child from any world can find a family. Joy grinned with pure mischief. We want to turn the whole planet into one big adoption agency. Marcus looked up from where he was helping Hope with her arithmetic, his face glowing with paternal pride. What do you think, Doc? Ready to expand the family business to include the entire galaxy? Sarah looked around at the clinic that had become so much more than she had ever imagined. At the interspecies family that had redefined what love could accomplish. At the dog who had started it all by simply caring about something in distress. She thought about humanity's unique gift for adoption across biological boundaries, and about a universe full of children who needed families that could see past differences to find connection. I think, she said, watching as Bella settled down for her afternoon nap surrounded by her impossible, wonderful, beloved children. That sounds like exactly the kind of expansion plan this family would come up with. Outside, ships from a dozen different worlds waited in orbit, their crews watching Earth's experiment in universal love with growing hope. They had come to study the species that had turned first contact into family reunion, and they were learning that perhaps the greatest technology in the universe was an open heart and an empty nursery waiting to be filled with love.